Greetings and warm welcome, dear audience. Today, we are back again with another professional masterclass. We are doing part 2 today. Our topic is meta-analysis and systematic reviews, part 2, by Ambassador Professor Dr. Rania Lampu. So let's welcome her. Welcome, Dr. Rania.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon and good evening here from Greece. Thank you very much, Dr. Estera. Yes, today we will explore the second part of systematic reviews and meta-analysis, two pillars of evidence-based research that guide us from scattered data to solid conclusions. And of course, systematic reviews teach us how to ask the right question, how to search comprehensively, how to critically appraise evidence. They challenge us to think beyond single studies and to synthesize what is already known, providing clarity in the midst of complexity. On the other hand, meta-analysis takes us a step further because it asks how we quantify the effect, how we can find patterns across diverse studies, and can we transform evidence into actionable insights for policy, practice, and future research? So together, these methods embody the very spirit of research integrity, transparency, reproducibility, and rigor. So, if you allow me, first I would like to congratulate Helga Higher Education, to thank you, Dr. Stirmala, for giving me this great opportunity to conduct this series of webinars. And I will start sharing now. Okay, is it visible now? We will start from where we have stopped. Can you see now? I can hear you, Dr. Estera. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's visible. Yeah, it's visible.
Okay.
And,
can you see the change? Can you see
yes,
the change
it's
of slide?
moving.
Okay. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. So, we discussed last time about systematic reviews, meta-analysis. We have explored many details. So now we're going to see about conflict results. How can conflict results from different systematic reviews be interpreted? So conflicting results may arise due to differences, first, in study inclusion criteria. Different systematic reviews may include varying studies based on data, population, intervention, or study design. Variations in search strategies, risk of bias assessments, or data extraction methods can influence results. Or low-quality primary studies in one review may alter findings. This has to do with methodology and quality. And what about outcome definitions? Differences in how outcomes are measured, classified, or reported, this can lead to apparent conflict. In terms of statistical approaches, the use of fixed effect versus random effect models or different meta-analytic methods, this can produce different pooled estimates. And finally, the publication reported bias or inclusion of grey literature or only published studies may affect the conclusions. So what are the steps now to interpret the conflicting results? First, compare the logical rigor. So assess the quality of each review using tools like AmStar2. We have explained about this last time. Higher quality reviews generally provide more reliable evidence. Examine overlapping studies, so identify whether the reviews include the same primary studies or if differences in included studies explain the conflict. Then analyze outcome definitions. Check whether the outcomes or measures differ across reviews. Conflicting results may reflect different operationalization rather than true differences. Assess heterogeneity. Review heterogeneity metrics to understand variability in included studies. high heterogeneity can explain divergent conclusions. Consider context and population because conflicts may arise due to differences in population setting or intervention characteristics, so results may not be directly comparable. Review statistical methods. Differences in effect size calculations or weighting and model choice can impact findings. And some strategies for synthesis. First, narrative synthesis. We can summarize areas of agreement and disagreement, highlight possible reasons for discrepancies, and or we can provide a higher level synthesis of multiple systematic reviews. This is the overview of reviews, so we call umbrella reviews, and assess overlap, quality, and consistency across reviews. And sensitivity analysis, here we can explore how conclusions change when we exclude lower quality reviews or studies. And what are some of the key principles that we need here to know? That conflicting results do not always indicate one review is wrong, but they may reflect real differences in populations, interventions, or methods. And also that interpretation should consider quality, context, transparency. Decision-making should weigh the body of evidence and not a single review. Now, here you can see again, this in a table in the summarization of what I say. Methodology, what interpretation guidance, prefer high-quality reviews. For study inclusion, examine overlap and difference included studies. For outcomes, check definitions and measurement differences. For heterogeneity, we consider variability in pooled estimates. For context, assess population interventions. And statistical methods about measure calculations and model choices. Review effect size calculations and model choices. So all these key principles and how this can be applied, how the results of systematic reviews influence clinical practice or policy. This is very interesting because this can actually show the relevance and the usefulness of these systematic reviews. Why inform evidence-based clinical practice? Because here we can provide a comprehensive summary of the effectiveness and safety of interventions. This helps clinicians choose the best treatments for specific populations based on the quality of evidence, reduce reliance on anecdotal experience or single studies. Then we can guide clinical guidelines. So this can serve as the foundation for guideline development or allow guideline committee to make recommendations for clear evidence grading. Identify knowledge gaps. This means highlight areas where evidence is insufficient or complete in directing future research priorities. Prevent unnecessary duplication of studies, saving resources. Support health policy and resource allocation. So help policymakers decide on funding public health programs or regulatory approvals. Provide evidence for cost-effective interventions or the implementation of ineffective practices. Enhance patient safety by summarizing harms and adverse effects. Systematic reviews reduce risks associated with treatments. Aid in developing safer clinical protocols and monitoring strategies. And support public health because this can help policymakers decide about the cost-effective interventions that I mentioned before, the funding the public health programs, and I insist in this. This is very, very useful. And finally, educate and inform stakeholders serve as educational tools for clinicians, for patients, for the public, promote transparent, evidence-based decision-making across healthcare systems. So the bottom line here is that systematic reviews translate research into actionable knowledge, improving care quality, forming policy, optimizing resource use, guiding future research. Now, how grade is used to assess the quality of evidence systematic reviews. I said before, and now we'll mention again that grade, what is grade? Is grading of recommendations, assessment, development, evaluation is a very popular framework that we use in order to assess the quality or certainty of evidence in a systematic reviews and for making recommendations and clinical guidelines. So what is the purpose of this? Is to provide a transparent, structured, consistent approach to rating the quality of evidence, to help, of course, both readers and policymakers to understand how confident we can be in the estimated effects of interventions. And the key domains of grade is the risk of bias, or the factors that can lower quality, actually. Grade evaluates evidence based on 5 main domains that can lower quality and 3 domains that can increase quality. For observational studies. So factors first that can lower quality, risk of bias. So here we can ask, are the included studies designed and conducted? Issues such as lack of randomization, compliant or incomplete data reduce confidence. The issue of consistency, are the results similar across studies? High heterogeneity without a plausible explanation, for example, lowers confidence. In indirectness, are the evidence and study populations, interventions, or outcomes directly relevant to the research question? In precision, are confidence intervals wide or sample size is small, making the effect estimate uncertain? And publication bias, if we ask them, is there evidence that studies with negative results may be missing from the analysis? Then factors that can increase quality, the large size effect. So very strong associations may increase confidence in causality. The dose-response relationship, which means that consistent patterns across levels of exposure strengthen confidence, and accounting for confounders. If all plausible biases would reduce an observed effect, but it is still present, confidence increases. So now, rating the quality of evidence. After evaluating the domains, grade, this framework assigns 1 of 4 levels of quality. On high level, this means that we are very confident that the true effect is close to the estimate. When we have moderate level, this means that we are moderately confident that true effect may be different. The low means limited confidence, true effect may be substantially different, and very low, we have very little confidence, means that true effect likely substantially different. Randomized trials start as high quality evidence, but can be downgraded, remember this. And observational studies start as low quality evidence, but can be upgraded based on stronger factors. Now, how this is used in systematic reviews? When we want to assess each outcome of interest separately, we summarize the overall quality of evidence in summary of findings tables. This helps guide clinical policy recommendations based on the certainty of the evidence. And some key takeaways for this is that grade, this framework provides a systematic and transparent way to judge confidence in effect estimates. It considers study limitations, consistency, relevance, precision, and bias. It allows systematic reviews. So, what are the challenges of conducting meta-analysis on no randomized studies? Non-randomized studies include observational studies, such as cohort studies, case control studies, cross-sectional, quasi-experimental designs, anything like this. So, unlike the randomized control trials, of course, these lack random allocation, and this makes them more vulnerable, more prone to bias. Here, the key challenges are the risk of bias or confounding, because these are prone to select bias, confounding, and information bias. Confounding variables may distort the relationship between exposure, intervention, and outcomes. For example, a study linking exercise to heart health may be confounded by diet or socioeconomic status. Another challenge is heterogeneity, because differences in study design, population, intervention, exposure, and outcome measurement are often greater in these non-randomized studies, non-randomized studies, rather than randomized controlled trials. So this makes statistical pooling more complex and potentially less reliable. Studies may report different effect measures, odds ratios, risk ratios, or hazard ratios. Converting this into a common metric for meta-analysis can be challenging and may introduce error. The quality assessment difficulties, standard tools for random control trials, randomized control trials like Cochrane that we mentioned before in the previous sessions are not fully applicable. Tools like Robin's Eye exist but require detailed knowledge and careful judgment. So assessing and accounting also for bias is more subjective and labor intensive. So quality assessment difficulties here. Publication and reporting bias because these studies may be less rigorously published and no results are often missing. Grey literature may need to be included, increasing the complexity of the search. The causal inference limitations because without randomization, it is difficult to infer causal relationships. Meta-analysis may overestimate or underestimate effects due to unmeasured confounders, and statistical challenges because standard meta-analytic models assume independent and comparable effect estimates. With these randomized studies, correlated biases, clustering, and variable follow-up complicate pooling. Random effect models help but cannot fully correct for bias or confounding. So what are the strategies to address these challenges? The rigorous risk of bias assessment. You can use Robin's Eye tool or equivalent tool. Subgroup or sensitivity analysis. Separate studies by design, quality, or risk bias to assess robustness. Exclude studies with extreme methodological flaws or missing key data. So careful study selection, and of course, advanced statistical methods, meta-regression in order to explore sources of heterogeneity, or use adjusted effect estimates when it's available. And transparent reporting, clearly report limitations, biases, and assumptions in the meta-analysis. So here we have a summary table which summarizes what I already said, that if we have a challenge of bias and confounding, then we try to select and try to explain the confound biases which affect validity. For heterogeneity, there is a variability in population and outcomes. For effect measures, different metrics complicate pooling. Quality assessment, what is the challenge? It's hard to assess and interpret. For publication, unpublished studies may be missing. A causal inference, this means limited ability to infer causality, and statistical complexity, correlated biases, and variable follow-up complicate analysis. So what we can take away from this is that meta-analysis of non-randomized studies require careful planning, a robust bias assessment, and cautious interpretation. Why? Because the underlying evidence is more heterogeneous and prone to systematic error than random control trial-based meta-analysis. Now, how do systematic reviews handle missing data from included studies? Handling missing data is a critical aspect of systematic reviews because incomplete or unclear data can bias results and affect conclusions. So during, for example, data extraction, we can note any missing or unclear information, such as outcomes not reported, or sample sizes, or measure variability missing, or dropout rates for follow-up complete. So we identify missing data. Second, contact the study authors. Reach out to authors for clarification or additional data. Document all attempts to obtain missing information. Then make assumptions transparently. This means that if missing data cannot be obtained, reviewers may impute the values or make assumptions based on available information. Some examples, we can use reported statistics, assume worst case or best case scenarios for missing outcomes in sensitivity analysis, and always report assumptions clearly in the review. For sensitivity analysis, we conduct analysis to test how missing data affect results, or we compare outcomes with and without imputed or assumed data to assess robustness. And weighting statistical methods in meta-analysis, some meta-analytic models can adjust for missing data or account for variability in study sizes, and random effect models can reduce the influence of small studies on the missing information. Document discuss clearly report the extent of missing data and its potential impact on findings. Include discussion in the limitations section of the review. The bottom line is that systematic reviews handle missing data by careful documentation, by attempting to retrieve information, transparent assumptions, sensitivity analysis, and discussion of potential bias. The goal is to minimize impact on conclusions while maintaining transparency and reproducibility. How come a network meta-analysis extends traditional pairwise meta-analysis? Network meta-analysis extends traditional pairwise meta-analysis. How? By allowing actually researchers to compare multiple interventions at the same time, even when some interventions have not been directly compared in head-to-head trials. So first, for traditional pairwise meta-analysis, this compares two interventions at a time, drug 1 versus drug B. It only uses studies to directly compare from these two interventions. What is the limitation? That it cannot provide information about interventions that haven't been compared effectively. For network meta-analysis, this builds a network of evidence connecting all available interventions. So it combines direct evidence, head-to-head trials, and indirect evidence comparisons inferred through a common comparator. For example, suppose there are trials comparing drug 1, drug B, or drug B versus drug C. So traditional pairwise meta-analysis cannot compare drug A and drug C if no direct trial exists. And this network meta-analysis allows an indirect comparison of drug A versus drug C using drug B as a common comparator. And one of the advantages is that we talk about a simultaneous comparison of multiple interventions within a single analysis. The rank ordering, because this can rank interventions based on effectiveness or safety. Improved precision, because by combining effect and direct evidence, estimates are more precise. It guides decision-making, which is useful when multiple treatment options exist, especially in clinical guidelines. And considerations, because this requires the assumption of transitivity, meaning that the studies included are sufficiently similar in terms of population, intervention, and outcome. High heterogeneity or inconsistency between direct and indirect evidence can affect reliability, and it's often visualized as a network diagram showing nodes, means interventions, and edges, means comparisons. So network meta-analysis expands traditional pairwise meta-analysis by integrating direct and indirect evidence across multiple interventions, allowing for comprehensive comparisons and ranking treatment options, even when some comparisons have not been tested directly in trials. So, if I give an example of how meta-analysis has changed treatment recommendations in healthcare. For example, the use of thrombolytic therapy in acute myocardial infarction, the heart attack. You can give the background. Before the decade of 80s, the treatment of this illness was largely supportive with limited evidence for specific interventions. So we have only individual clinical trials on thrombolytic drugs. This showed varying results. Some suggested benefit, others thought that these drugs were inconclusive. What was the role of meta-analysis? That researchers conducted for this meta-analysis combining data from multiple randomized control trials involving thousands of patients, of acute myocardial infarction patients. So the meta-analysis showed that early thrombolytic therapy significantly reduced mortality compared to standard care, and pooled estimates provided strong statistical evidence that individual trials alone could not competently demonstrate due to sample sizes. What is the impact on guidelines? That the findings led to major changes in clinical practice because the cardiology guidelines recommended since then early administration of thrombolytics for eligible patients with this illness, and hospitals worldwide implemented protocols for rapid identification and treatment of heart attack patients. So after time, due to time over time, this meta-analytic evidence contributed to a substantial reduction in heart attack mortality. So why this example matters? I think it's obvious because we talk about aggregated evidence. So meta-analysis combines smaller studies to produce high-quality evidence. Clinical confidence, because physicians can adopt therapy knowing that the benefit is statistically robust. And policy guidelines, because this demonstrated the power of meta-analysis to change treatment recommendations globally. If you can mention some other notable examples, statins for cardiovascular prevention. Meta-analysis of multiple trials confirmed the benefits of statins, leading to widespread guideline adoption. Or the aspirin for stroke prevention. Meta-analytic evidence supported low-dose aspirin in high-risk patients. Or tamoxifen in breast cancer. Meta-analysis shows survival benefit, changing adjuvant therapy standards. So meta-analysis can transform healthcare practice by providing stronger, more reliable evidence than individual studies, often influencing ethical guidelines, treatment protocols, and patient outcomes. Now, more advanced current issues. If we want to discuss the role of living systematic reviews in evidence-based practice. Living systematic reviews are an innovative actually approach in evidence synthesis that continuously update as new research becomes more available, making them particularly valuable for evidence-based practice. Um, so, first, what is living systematic reviews? This is a systematic review that is regularly updated to incorporate newly published studies rather than being static at the time of initial publication. And updates may occur monthly, quarterly, or as new evidence emerges, depending on the topic and research volume. And what is the role in evidence of this in evidence-based practice? That first, we talk about how this is relevant. It's the current evidence because traditional systematic reviews can become outdated quickly, especially in fast-moving fields like oncology or AI in medicine, or we said about the COVID pandemic. So these living systematic reviews provide real-time guidance, helping clinicians make decisions based on the most recent and relevant evidence. Supports rapid guideline updates because this helps guideline developers continuously revise recommendations without waiting for a full review cycle. Very important, and it ensures clinical protocols and policies reflect the latest research findings. It reduces redundancy because by continuously updating these studies minimize duplication of effort and ensure resources focus on new evidence synthesis. It enhances decision-making confidence because it provides dynamic, high-quality evidence summaries, reducing uncertainty in treatment choices and policy decisions. It facilitates early detection of trends because this allows researchers and policymakers to identify emerging patterns like adverse events or treatment efficacy changes promptly. And some methodological considerations Here we can say that this requires, of course, continuous literature surveillance. Here we can use automated or semi-automated search tools. Of course, this requires a predefined protocol specifying update frequency or inclusion criteria and synthesis methods, and maintains a transparency by documenting all updates and changes to results or conclusions. On the other hand, what are the challenges? That is resource intensive because this requires software, ongoing funding, dedicated personnel. There is a risk of overinterpretation of early evidence if updates are too frequent without sufficient studies. And maintaining methodological rigor and version control can be, of course, complex. So the bottom line here is that living thematic reviews play a crucial role in evidence-based practice by keeping clinical and policy guidance current, responsive, and reliable, especially in areas where new research emerges rapidly. They represent a shift from static knowledge synthesis to a dynamic, continuously updated model that enhances patient care and policy decisions. Now, how AI is being integrated in systematic reviews and meta-analysis. AI is increasingly being interpreted systematic reviews and systematic meta-analysis in order to streamline workforces, improve accuracy, and reduce the time required for traditional labor-intensive tasks. We live in the era of AI. First, for example, how can AI be used in literature search and screening? We can have automated literature searches now, thanks to amazing AI tools that we have at our disposal, because AI can quickly scan multiple databases and preprint servers for relevant studies. We are able to conduct citation screening. Machine learning models can prioritize studies likely to meet inclusion criteria, reducing the number of irrelevant article researchers must manually review. The text mining keyword expansion, because AI can identify synonyms, related terms, and emerging terminology to make searches more comprehensive. Example, a natural language processing algorithm can read abstracts and classify them as relevant or irrelevant, significantly reducing screening workload. AI data extraction. AI can pull key information such as population or interventions or outcomes and study design from full text articles. These NLP tools can convert unstructured text into structured format suitable for analysis. And what is the benefit? The benefit is that it reduces human error and speeds up data preparation for meta-analysis. Of course, there is an issue of risk. We can use it, so you can use AI tool in risk of bias assessment, because some tools can actually assist in identifying methodological characteristics linked to bias, such as blinding or missing data or randomization. And these tools can flag potential high-risk studies, which is very, very important. AI in evidence synthesis and analysis. Here, AI can help a computer effect sizes and confidence intervals from extracted data. Machine learning models can help identify patterns of variability across studies or heterogeneity detection. And visualization, because AI can generate forest plots, network diagrams, and other graphical summaries automatically. AI now enabling systematic reviews. AI can monitor new publications and alert researchers to studies that meet inclusion criteria, enable living systematic reviews that remain current over time. And what is the advantage of this AI integration? That it reduces the time required for screening, extraction, and analysis. It minimizes human error and variability in study selection to data extraction. The scalability, because it makes it feasible to review larger bodies of literature, and early insights, because this can help identify trends and emerging evidence more quickly. On the other hand, what are the limitations and considerations? That AI tools are not fully autonomous. I mean that the human oversight is critical for validation. There's a risk of algorithmic bias if the training data are not representative, and transparency in AI processes is essential for reproducibility. So what we can What are the key takeaways here? That the AI enhances systematic reviews and meta-analysis. How? By automating repetitive tasks, improving efficiency, and enabling living reviews. But human expertise remains essential always for critical appraisal, interpretation, and decision making. Um, so AI tools can never replace humans. And what are cumulative meta-analysis and when they are used? A cumulative analysis is a type of meta-analysis in which studies are added one at a time, they're usually in chronological order, and the pool effect estimate is updated each time we have a new study. It allows researchers to observe how evidence evolves over time. It's typically displayed as a cumulative force plot, which shows the pool estimate after each added study. Um, so what is the purpose? Is to see how the effect estimate changes as new studies are published. It's useful for rapidly evolving fields where early evidence may be limited. Um, the early detection of threat treatment effects, because AI helps identify this cumulative meta-analysis help identify when the evidence became sufficient to support a clinical decision. It can also show that the treatment's effectiveness was clear before all studies were completed, potentially shortening the time to adoption. And this cumulative meta-analysis also can prevent redundant trials. This reveals if enough evidence already exists, reducing unnecessary duplication of studies. Assessing stability of results, this shows whether new studies strengthen or weaken the existing evidence. So how this works? Typically by application data, sometimes by sample size or quality. Calculate pooled effects stepwise. Start with the first study, compute pooled effect after the second study, then update after the third study, and so on. And we can interpret trends, so observe stabilization or effect estimates, determine points in time when statistical significance was achieved. For example, I mentioned before about thrombolytic therapy for heart attack. Here, early small trials suggested benefit, but the pool results in a cumulative meta-analysis showed clear mortality reduction even before all trials were completed, informing guideline updates sooner. Statins for cardiovascular disease, because cumulative meta-analysis demonstrated early and consistent benefits supporting widespread adoption. And what are the advantages? That this analysis show temporal trends in evidence, identify earliest point of conclusive evidence, that this helps reduce research waste by identifying when further trials may be unnecessary. On the other hand, what are the limitations? That early small studies may exaggerate effects, so there is a risk of application bias. But early studies are often smaller or less rigorous, so that they may be influenced by study quality. And it should be interpreted cautiously if new studies differ in population or intervention from older studies. So here you can see the summarization table. That cumulative meta-analysis is a pooling of studies over time. The purpose is to monitor evidence evolution, to detect early effects and prevent redundant trials. We add chronological studies, then we update pool effect estimate each time. The advantages, of course, that it show trends, identifies when evidence become conclusive, and the limitations, of course, that is vulnerable, sensitive to publication bias, study quality and heterogeneity. Now, I mentioned for meta-regression here. First, what is meta-regression? I repeat again that meta-regression examines how study level characteristics influence the effect sizes reported in different studies. Essentially, it's like regression analysis in meta-analysis, where the dependent variable is the effect size and independent variables are study level covariates. What is the purpose? First, to investigate heterogeneity. When studies show varying results, Meta-regression helps identify factors that explain differences such as population characteristics, age, gender, intervention dose or duration, study quality or design. Then quantify the influence of covariates. So it defines how much some variation in effect sizes is explained by specific covariates. Generate hypotheses, suggest potential moderators or predictors of treatment effects that can guide future research and improve interpretation results, because this helps contextualize why some studies show stronger or weaker effects than others, and this improves the clinical relevance of our findings. So some key points that we need to take from this is that meta-regression is observational at study level, so results are hypothesis generated, no definite causal evidence. That this requires a sufficient number of studies to avoid overfitting, that can be univariate, non-multivariate. It's conducted using random effect models to account for between study heterogeneity. An example, suppose that we want to conduct a study of meta-analysis of a drug shows variable effect on blood pressure. Meta-regression can do what here? Can test whether patient age or baseline blood pressure or dosage explains differences in outcomes between studies. So I think this is clear. And the bottom line here is that meta-regression is a tool to explore and explain heterogeneity meta-analysis, helping researchers understand why study results differ and improving the interpretation and applicability of pooled estimates. 8 challenges in synthesizing evidence from heterogeneous study designs. Synthesizing evidence from heterogeneous study designs is one, I think, of the most challenging aspects of systematic reviews and meta-analysis. Heterogeneity can arise from different populations, in interventions, in outcomes, or study methodology. So first, we need to see the types of heterogeneity. It's clinical heterogeneity. Then we have differences in participant characteristics, interventions, or outcomes measured. It's methodological heterogeneity. We have variations in study design. What you will use? You will use random control trials. You will use case control studies. Variations in quality or risk of bias. Statistical heterogeneity, variability in the magnitude or direction of effect estimates between studies, which is often quantified by I2 occurrence Q. The challenges in synthesis. Combining different study designs, so random control trials minimize confounding, may have limited external validity. Observational studies have high generalizability but high risk bias. And pooling results across designs can be misleading if differences in internal validity are not accounted for. After variability in outcomes and measures, studies may use different scales and points or follow-up times, standardizing these outcomes for meta-analysis and introduce additional uncertainty. The risk of bias differences, because different designs have inherently different biases, selection bias, performance bias, confounding. Synthesizing low and high quality studies together may dilute the reliability of the pooled estimate. The interpretation complexity. High heterogeneity complicates the interpretation of pooled results. So this may need a subgroup analysis with a regression narrative synthesis instead of a single pooled effect. Publication bias and reporting differences. Observational studies may be less consistently published or reported compared to random control trials. And differences in reporting standards can make data extraction comparison difficult. So what are the strategies to address these challenges? Stratified group analysis, separate studies by design and population, dimension type, or meta-regression I mentioned before, explore whether study level characteristics explain heterogeneity, the use of standardized effect sizes when we convert different measures to a common metric, or the narrative synthesis. When statistic pooling is appropriate, we can summarize results qualitatively, and the sensitivity analysis when we test how excluding low quality or highly heterogeneous studies affects the conclusions. So what we can take from this is that heterogeneous study designs make synthesis more complex. It can reduce confidence in our conclusions. So what we need careful assessment of study quality, of stratification, appropriate statistical methods, which are essential in order to ensure meaningful interpretation. In some cases, a qualitative synthesis may be more appropriate than pooling results. So I will stop here and thank you very much for your attention. It was
Yeah,
exhaustive
thank you.
presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Rania, for this interesting session. You have completed two parts under this topic, meta-analysis. And we have, I think, another 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. We will complete.
Yes, we will also, I want to say that we will also, at the end, we will have a session which includes everything, how we can
Oh,
draft a manuscript, an original manuscript using AI tools. So we'll focus on
oh,
AI, all specifically AI tools for each process, for each step of the research design, for
oh,
literature
oh,
review, for data
okay.
analysis, for data collection, for everything.
So how long will
So
it take that one? That
uh,
session?
one webinar maybe for this, and maybe one for patents also. We will.
So you need extra two more sessions, is it, to
Yes,
do
yes,
that?
yes, yes, yes,
Oh, can we take a break, a short break,
yes,
and then
yes.
come
Don't
back
worry.
again? Because yeah, you also need a break, and
Yes, yes.
so we just
Okay,
switch a
okay,
bit from research to business, then we come back. So you just give me
okay.
the topics, and
Yes,
I so that I can prepare our audience before that session over. So you just take a
yes,
break
yes.
about a month, and then we come back fresh with additional things. So easy for the students to connect as well, and even the academics. Yeah. Thank you so
Mhm.
much, Dr. Rania, for this wonderful session. And next week we will meet for another topic. Yeah, interesting topic. Just look out for our posting on our timeline. And I wish you a happy weekend. And thank you again, Dr. Rania, for this wonderful session with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.